welcome to Plus One to Gaming. I'm Chris.
And I'm Eric.
And joining us, as always, are our co-host cohorts, Billy and Mark. Hey, guys. Don't leave me hanging. You can at least say hello.
Hello, I'm Mark. How are you?
I'm not hearing Billy at all. Is he?
You guys were both muted.
Yeah, you're not hearing Billy because a silent spell was cast upon him.
Oh.
You didn't hear me say hello either?
No, I didn't hear it.
You guys were both muted. I was watching you.
Oh,
I could see it.
Okay.
I saw him come off of mute, but then I didn't hear anything.
Cool. That's how we do intros now.
Okay, somebody rolled a 1 on the intro.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start it.
Intro fail. Let's try it. I stumble on my intro. I lose. I literally lost initiative. So, well, hello. Thanks for having me again.
I'm happy to be here as well.
We are consummate professionals here.
Consummate professionals.
But I think we're all super pumped because we're moving into the next adventure in Candlekeep Mysteries. What is this, book 3, the Book of the Raven? Is that
correct? Right? Yes.
And we're trying to do something different for every campaign that we're running. Billy, do you want to just give us a brief synopsis of what we're doing different for this one, since it was your idea?
So in this one, I wanted to make the character building a team effort. So I tasked everybody for making a character for someone else to play. So in like a round robin, everybody's making a character, and then somebody else is either going to have to play that character and breathe life into this creation that one of your friends made. And I thought it would be very cool. So definitely a different approach than we've done before, but I thought it would be fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I've never done anything like this before. I think we've played pre-made characters for certain thematic campaigns, but I think this is a different level from that. It's really exciting because I had a lot of fun putting together a character for Mark. But let's start with Eric. You had a character. I think you made a character for me. So do you want to kind of share that and tell us what you've made and why?
Yes. So this is a concept that I've wanted to play for a while it's just one of so to peek behind the curtain a little, I have like a Google Doc of just like whenever I think of like, ooh, what about this? I'll write it in there so I never forget, because otherwise I would. And this is a character concept that I thought of a long time, but never really put any more thought into other than like the concept. So I'm posting it in the Facebook group now. I had his whole background written. I wrote it at work, and I don't know. I must not have saved it on the PDF when I emailed it to my home computer. So I don't know where that is. But so the character is a satyr. The race didn't super matter, to be honest, as kind of is like thematic with a lot of the characters I make. Like the character and or like the concept kind of comes first, and then everything else I just kind of like fill in. I didn't want to make him a human though, because that's always like my go-to. I'm like, this character would be great as a human, but that's kind of boring. So he's a satyr, and he is a wild magic sorcerer. His name is Alder Colt Leander. He's a guild merchant, and his powers as a sorcerer just recently manifested, and he has no clue how to use them, no clue what's going on, why he's shooting magic out of his hands when he gets angry or scared, and he's trying to figure out what the heck.
No, this is great. I have a huge smile on my face.
I got this idea from, there's a spell, like Chaos Bolt maybe, and you just you throw some magic energy at some people, and you have to roll on what type of damage it is. So you roll a d8 on top of it, and it could be acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, poison, psychic, or thunder. And I was like, that's kind of cool, like not knowing what you're throwing. And that kind of evolved into like why would like a magic person who studies magic and knows their magic in and out, why would it be random? It's like, okay, maybe this person actually doesn't know what they're doing. And it's a trope that's out there, but I don't see it happen very often. of like, it's kind of like the X-Men a little bit. Like you hit your teenage years and your mutant powers manifest, and you're like, oh, I can't control them. But in like a more magical D&D setting. And so normally with sorcerers, like there's some sort of lineage reason as to why like you have these powers. So I feel like that could be this person's like long-term goal. Like, which one of my ancestors did whatever you have to do to get wild magic blood in the bloodline? So trying to figure out like that kind of big mystery, while also in the short term trying to figure out how to be more capable as a sorcerer and not just accidentally blow up your friends.
It's always a worthwhile life goal, I think. I'm super pumped. Actually, the reason I have a huge smile on my face was I've been really wanting to play a wild magic sorcerer for a while. So we did not cheat. I didn't tell you my preferences, but
no, we didn't cheat. You did say we have talked about before. Like I haven't played this type of, not even subclass. I haven't played neither of us have ever played sorcerers. And both of us have kind of wanted to. So you said it, I don't know how many weeks ago, like, I've never played a sorcerer, I'd really like to. And I was like, perfect, because I have a sorcerer like on the back burner that I'm excited to. I was excited to play, but more than that, I'm excited to like see come to life. I mean, I imagine we're going to be able to churn through a lot of our back log of characters throughout this series of playing all these different campaigns. So I'm hoping I'll get to play all of them, but I wanted you to breathe life into this guy.
Well, I will do my best to honor this character because I think that he's going to be a ton of fun to play. Satyr was never even on my radar, but I am super stoked. I've been falling more in love with quirky races, not so much more like the badass exotic ones, but something like a satyr that you can just be a little sillier with, or maybe a little more whimsical instead of being edgelordy. Like I would have been maybe, I would have been still pumped, but maybe less pumped if you would have picked Tiefling, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't have a race in mind other than human, when I first started this. And I went through a few. I didn't, not necessarily min-max, but I didn't like pick the race for their like attributes. I didn't, to be honest, I don't even know what they are, what the satyr attributes are.
I would imagine a satyr might have high charisma, though.
I do think it like ended up working out in your favor. But that wasn't, I had to like go back and look like, oh shit, when I'm building this, what do I put in? I forgot about like race attributes. But seeing like the satyr, I was like, oh cool. Like we don't see satyrs. I'm kind of interested in them because they're like you were saying, they're a whimsical class, but they're not edgelords. Like it's not like a minotaur or a tiefling or anything like that. So I kind of see them as like fancier halflings. I don't know, like that's what I was envisioning, kind of like their place in the world, or maybe not fancier, like more like wooded halflings. So they've got like the kind of happy-go-lucky attitude of a halfling, but whereas like halflings are more like city dwellers, these are more kind of like rural. But it's just interesting because like I don't know. I don't know what like satyrs.
Well, I imagine they're a fae. Like
the
I would imagine there's some kind of like fae touch there, or I do not know too much about the satyr within sort of D&D's framework. But I would, my guess is that maybe they have some kind of like fae lineage, which to me is a clear path of wild, like a good hook for why does he have wild magic? Like why is this font coursing through him? There's a ton to work with.
Yes.
Like magical halflings. Fae halflings. The other thing that I liked, so Chaos Bolt kind of mixed with the wild magic table, to me like reads like I don't know what I'm doing. So I wanted those two like mechanical things, like mechanical pieces to be thematic in the character. So insofar as like spells, picking spells, sometimes I try my best to be like thematic with what like the type of character that I want to portray. So the only like real damage, you get Dragon's Breath, which again, it's a second level spell. You can again like pick the damage type.
and Chaos Bolt, you randomly roll for the damage type. And then I don't know if Billy will allow this, but for cantrips, I gave you every damaging cantrip, basically. Well, 4 of them. Frostbolt or Firebolt, Ray of Frost, Poison Spray, and Chill Touch. And I figured kind of similar with Chaos Bolt, you roll a d4 to see like which one comes out. So it's not really like maximizing because you're not like, okay, I know this thing is weak to frost, so I'll throw a frost. It's like, ugh, I just want to hurt you, and this is what comes out.
I throw magic.
Yes, I throw magic at thee. And like if it's weak to frost, it might be resistant to fire, and you have a fourth of a chance to throw either. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So same thing with Dragon's Breath. If you ever cast it, I would like to like roll. Like, don't pick. I shoot electric mouth fire at you.
It's whatever. It's like roll
It's
a D
it's
whatever.
the random. Yeah. And the other ones are kind of, I'd like to just put in a lot of utility in there. There aren't a lot of other like mechanically random spells for obvious reasons. So the spell list is there are 3 damaging spells, and every one of those I tried to find like to be as random as possible. Because this guy doesn't understand what's happening to his body. It's like almost going through puberty.
Magical puberty.
Yeah. And like I took a long time like thinking about this because I was like, I can't really think of like a genre or a trope that is this. I know it's out there. And then I was like, oh duh, X-Men. Like it's not only out there, it's very prevalent.
Yeah.
I was just missing it because I was thinking like more fantasy and mystical. And like getting your mutant powers is an allegory for puberty. Same thing with Spider-Man. He's an allegory for puberty.
Oh yeah.
Stan Lee was like all about
pulling those highly emotional, angsty teen into the story. I think with this satyr, it will, given the right costume, maybe some cool robes, I think he would look absolutely like from the X-Men comics.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I had a background written, and like I said, I must not have clicked like the save button on the PDF document, so I don't have it, but. We can maybe work one out together. The one I had was that he was like, he's a guild merchant. He has a loving family. Like he's got a good life. He's got good friends and everything. And then all of a sudden he starts shooting magic and he's got to like figure out what's going on. So that like, that was his parents don't know because they don't have magic. It's a recessive gene probably. So grandfather, great grandfather, like somebody down the line got this magic in the bloodline. So he wants to kind of figure out why.
Old Grand Tabernacle got the magic. Caught the magic in him.
Magicked up the blood.
I would love to and maybe that power, maybe he accidentally burned his house down or came close to hurting someone close to him.
Yeah.
Because he can't control it, which drives him away to figure out how to control it.
Exactly. I don't think you leave your like friends and family and comfortable life if you just like, look, I can do prestidigitation all of a sudden. Isn't this neat? My clothes are clean. I think there has to be some sort of like driving, like, oh, this was, so I think like in the story of this, like the arc of his like opening story, like it was kind of fun and games. Like, oh, isn't this neat? Oh, I can use it to my advantage. Oh, I maybe get over on somebody. Oh, it bites me in the butt.
Yeah,
and
gets carried away.
Shoot. Yeah. I accidentally roll, whatever. I cast 7 to 8 on the wild magic and you cast fireball centered on yourself. Like, something triggers and goes wrong. So it then forces him to like figure out what's happening. Because if you can't control your powers, but only good things happen, who cares?
Yeah. Like, whoa, it's raining donuts suddenly.
Like, this is nothing but a plus. Best
power. No, that's great. And I think it's a very easy thing to kind of jump into. I also, I want to play with the idea of him like just being more reticent about using his power. Like, I don't think he's going to necessarily want to throw out these, or unleash as much power as he has just because this understanding that it just really could go wrong. I think it's more of something like...
Yeah. So I was thinking about that too. And to be honest, like the reluctant hero is one of my very least favorite tropes. it just drives me insane. Which is probably why I like Korra more than Aang, or at least one of the reasons. Also, her fucking biceps. But
yeah, we could talk a whole episode about the Legend of Korra, I think.
super underrated. Anyway, I don't like the reluctant hero trope. So, and I thought of like this exact thing. Like, if he can't control the damage he's throwing, he's not going to want to cast it because bad things could happen. So I think that like he doesn't understand how it works at all, and it's very kind of like reactionary and emotional. So like if he feels attacked, he might just like so like I gave him Featherfall. Like if you fall, you cast Featherfall because you're like, oh, I'm just floating. Okay,
like
what's happening?
That emotional reaction combined with magical ability.
Exactly. I gave him absorb elements for kind of the same reason. Charm person, like it's more like he's not controlling it, but it's happening.
Gotcha.
So like if he wants to like, hey, how are you doing? Like he can charm a person.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. So like if he does, something's happening and he's startled, he may accidentally cast Chaos Bolt. Like,
all right. Just talking about that. Just you sharing that, I think, gave me a ton of insight and clarity of how to handle that.
Nice.
So I think like he's probably going to be a very emotional character, which I think will be fun to play. And I think those like because and maybe even like I don't know, like he could be very kind and empathetic in an emotional way, but whatever it is. All of those magics are tied to those emotions, so he has no control over whether he casts it or not. It's just, it's a sewer rat, chaos. Like I magic you, like It's just this visceral reaction.
Yes, and I think like the level of so I gave him a damage for every like cantrip level 1, level 2. So I think like the level of emotion dictates like which one it happens. So like if there's Ika rat, it might just be Frostbolt or Frost whatever, Ray Frost. You zap it.
Yeah.
But if it's Golem, yes, Ika Golem, you might do Dragon's Breath or something.
That's cool.
But yeah, so his personality traits, I have it like I can talk my way in and out of any situation, and I have no time for physical activity. So he is kind of like, I don't know, like city dweller, kind of chitty chatty person. His ideals, I need to know the answer, and the answer is like, why is this happening to me? My power for bonds, my powers are special, but I don't know why. And then for flaws, I act compulsively. So I did want it to have like a compulsive nature to his character, in and out of mechanical spells. Like he's like, ooh, an apple, and he just like takes it or whatever. Like that kind of compulsiveness, I think, can be fun to play with.
Yeah, this is great. All right, is there anything else you wanted to share about Alder? Because I'm super stoked.
Yeah, a little bit. So for him being a satyr, you get a couple cool things. First of all, you're Fae, which I don't know what that. Maybe Fae. I think Fae can't be put to sleep.
Yeah, you have like advantage on magical charm and magic sleeps.
Fae, your creature type is Fae rather than humanoid. Cool. You can ram people, which is tight. So if you do get frustrated or whatever,
like a mini minotaur.
Yes, ram. You can use your head and horns to make an unarmed strike. If you hit them, you deal bludgeoning damage equal to 1d4 plus your strength modifier, which spoiler is -1. Magic resistance, you have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. And mirthful leaps. Whenever you make a long or high jump, you can add a d8. Or you can roll a d8 and add the number of feet, blah, 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 blah. So
he's got a prance. He's got a prance feature.
You got a little prancy guy.
Oh, yes.
So that's cool. And I believe all of his names, I looked them up in like a baby name book. All of his names are like wooded or like wooded themed, I guess. Which I don't know, kind of. But yeah, that's it.
Awesome, Eric. I'm super pumped to play this character. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I guess that leads us to Mark's character. Mark, are you ready to receive your avatar?
I am.
All right.
I'm excited and a little bit scared.
Well, don't be scared, because I think I thought a lot about like what character might be fun for you to play. So I want to introduce you to Stardew Raindrop.
Ooh,
Stardew
I like it so far.
Stardew Raindrop is a wood elf, and she hails from the Moonwood Forest. She is a druid born into the druidic Moonwood Enclave under Saloon's sign, and she has been chosen as the Enclave's next holy shaman and spiritual leader, despite her young age. And now that she's come of age, she's been tasked with her spiritual quest of replenishing the Moonfire Staff, which is a treasured relic that has been passed down through the Druid Enclave through the generations. So with starlight gleaming in her eyes, she sets forth to explore the world, learn from its bountiful opportunities, and recharge the staff. And this staff comes from a homebrew thing that I found online. She holds this Moonfire Staff, which gives her the ability to cast Moonfire as a cantrip. And so this cantrip, it has a range of 120 feet, and it shoots a magical mote of energy against a creature, and that's like a ranged spell attack. Then you roll a 1d6, so I guess we're kind of continuing the random thing. You roll a 1d6, and based on that, the target can either take, fire and radiant damage, fire and is vulnerable to radiant damage, it takes radiant damage and is vulnerable to fire, or it takes fire and radiant damage and has vulnerability to both. So you just kind of get this cool little cantrip. It's not like overly powered, but it's just something fun to play with.
That sounds cool.
And the other cool thing, Billy kind of said, like, hey, pick cool things to like play around with. Druids are really one of my favorite classes that I didn't get to play until really maybe a few years ago. And they just have so many fun things, especially you can turn into animals. But there's an option that came out with the whole like shape-shifting thing called Wild Companion. And this is from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. You can opt to, instead of shape-shifting, you can summon a spirit that assumes an animal form, which basically uses like your wild shape spell. And basically it gives you like a fey familiar that you can use as like a companion, which I think is pretty cool.
Sweet.
So let me tell you a little bit about her like class and kind of like why I made it for you. She is a druid of the Circle of Dreams, and this has got a lot of like healing and utility and just things that you can use to I feel like she's going to be exploring the world, so she has a lot of skills and abilities that allow her to do that. And she is a wood elf, so she also has all of those attributes from being fey, but she also has a couple other things like Mask of the Wild, which lets her hide in foliage, rain, snow, and other natural phenomenon, which is pretty cool. But you can see all the other like skills and abilities on her character sheet. In terms of personality, she has different assumptions from those around her concerning personal space, blithely invading others' space in innocence, or reacting to ignorant invasions of her own. Her ideals are adventure. She's far from home and everything is strange and wonderful. Her bonds are she's fascinated by the beauty and wonder of this new land. And her flaws are her insatiable curiosity and disregard for short-term consequences often get her into trouble.
Perfect. I love that.
And like in terms of like equipment and like things that she uses and wears, she has her Moonfire Staff, which is like kind of very important to her and her mission. On top of like different spells like Detect Magic, Entangle, Goodberry, Speak with Animals. I also gave her Augury, just to like, it's a good way to kind of communicate with the things around you to get information. And Pass Without Trace is like a classic druid, just like I'm invisible and one with the environment.
Nice.
So I made this character for you for a few different reasons. One, I don't think I ever recall you playing a druid, but correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, I don't think I have.
And druids are just, like I said, they give you so many fun role-playing options, and just seeing like how, you know, even just the few games that we've been playing recently, like the way you've been stepping up your role-playing and just having fun with that. I wanted to give you a character, I guess it just like takes it into the next gear.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, she is very out there. I mean, just if you kind of lean toward like woo-woo hippie crunchy, one with the world and good spiritual vibes, man, like you're on the right track, I guess. So she's just very curious about everything. So I feel like I want to kind of give you more opportunities to, especially with her, you know, she's got really good wisdom, you know, giving you chances and, you know, fairly decent charisma, like giving you more chances and opportunities to role play, and then functional sort of magical utility that can serve a lot of different tools and functions, like in terms of problem solving, I guess.
That sounds so cool. It's actually perfect, because the only reason I haven't played a druid is because whenever I would go to make one, there were so many different options and stuff. I'd be like, I'll just try something a little more basic, like a rogue.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was a little bit out of my reach, so having one pre-made is like kind of perfect, because I've always wanted to try it. And then the character, I think that's great. I think that would be a lot of fun to try to embody all of that.
I know you'll definitely do a great job, because just like seeing how much we've all grown in the past few years, and even just over the past few games we've been playing. But I also wanted to give you something that like might push you a little bit, might challenge you a little bit too.
Yeah,
I think that's also fun to have, you know, something that might be like, I've never really played sorcerer because it hadn't interested me up until recently, and, you know, shied away from it for other reasons. But now I'm really excited to play one that's been made.
Yeah,
for
that's
me.
cool. Also, I've been just on a real life level, I've been reading a lot of like naturalist books and stuff like that recently.
Oh, sweet.
So it's actually kind of a perfect.
But yeah, so, like, she's friends to all animals. I think she has like the Outlander or a far traveler background. So, you know, she's kind of like a stranger in a strange land. So it just gives you ample role playing ammunition to ask questions about things or to be curious about things to the extent that you want to. You know, she's kind of, I guess, like, imagine adolescent elf out, or not adolescent, like young early 20s elf going out to like find herself and her purpose in the world.
Yeah, I like it. I feel like as a now 34-year-old man, I can embody that.
Nice. I know you'll definitely be up to the challenge. And then any questions that you have about like the class, the race, or whatever, we can talk about later.
Cool. I'm excited to dive into that.
Cool. So that was the second character. Mark, it's your turn.
Yeah, so I had Eric for my person, and this was a bit of a challenge for me, for sure. I went through like a whole bunch of different initial ideas and did some kind of research. But what I ended up doing was, oddly enough, at first I was thinking of doing something kind of like a druid, because that's what I was interested in learning more about. But I kind of pivoted to find something that I thought was more badass. So what I came up with was an earth, I don't know how to say it, Genasi. His name is Soans, in the tradition of Eric naming things after medicines. And I went, it might be a little basic, so apologies if it is, Eric, but what I was trying to do is create something that was kind of a normal dude that had a very good opportunity to be different and strategic, like approaching it in a different direction. So he is a soldier, and his backstory is that well, first of all, I want to describe what he looks like, because I think that's important. His skin is kind of like swirly black, gray, white granite, and there's certain rough patches, and like underneath he's got this like red crystal substrate, which gives him on his head a sweet red crystal mohawk that goes down the middle.
Right.
Yeah, I thought you would appreciate that. And he's super ripped, and his story is basically that he was kind of a mid-ranking soldier, and he essentially was high enough up that he was able to discover that his superiors were basically waging this super dishonorable war because their main goal was actually just to like capture and mine other Genesee that they could. So they had kind of like gone rogue against the whole race. So he was basically enraged, end up attacking another, like his own people, in order to try to save an enemy combatant. Other people witnessed this, obviously, and the only way he escaped was because the enemies took him and spirited him away to try to save him, thinking he would become an ally, which he refused to do. And basically they locked him up as a prisoner, and he had to escape later because he wouldn't essentially continue the same dishonorable war on the other side. So one thing I wanted to do, which I wasn't quite sure of, so I have two options as far as like his weaponry and stuff. So I gave him a heavy gunner subclass. So they can use guns and stuff, but I don't really know how that works. I don't think we've ever really used them. But I was imagining him having some kind of, if there was a gun, some kind of super sweet, like rock throwing, earth based gemstone projectile thing. The other option is that I believe he, because of the heavy gunner subclass, would let him have 2 great axes, which I am imagining is just a kind of like red crystal matching his body crystals type of classic Dungeons and Dragons giant ass axes he's swinging around. And part of the reasons I picked these things was because I wanted to do something for Eric that was elemental and earthy, to try to, like kind of play on like the outdoorsy stuff and nature in general without it being something that I think you've done Druid before. So maybe having a different opportunity to kind of role play those things and use them. He has some cool stuff like he can mold the earth. And he also gets Pass Without Trace, which I thought could be cool strategic because he can have huge weapons like heavy armor and stuff and still sneak and kind of have that rogue edge that I know Eric likes to play those kind of strategic plays. Oh, he is champion so that he can do crits on 19 or 20s, which I thought was pretty cool. Earthwalk as well, which is neat, although I don't know how much, useful it is just to, because it's like something about passing difficult terrain as normal, I think. And his his personality traits are that he's haunted by memories of war. His ideals are that his city, nation, and people are all that matter. For him, that's become more of kind of like a race thing. Like, even he doesn't want his own people warring at all. And beyond that, his rejection of this war is more turned his focus on just kind of elemental things in general. Like he's more concerned about earth and that part of his being. His bonds is that he'll never leave a friend behind because he feels the need to repay those enemies that did save him from his own soldiers. And his flaw is that basically he has rage problems. So like his hatred of enemies is blind and unreasoning. And sometimes he reacts, with anger.
Interesting. So yeah, I don't think I've ever even been in a game where somebody played a Genesee. So that's fun. So he's a fighter, correct?
Yeah.
It's my favorite class. So I'm excited about that. I don't think I've ever played a champion, which is fun. Just getting able to like get in there and do a ton of extra damage. The pass without a trace with like a heavy armored like melee fighter is really interesting. Like that's something that you don't see, and I can see it like he's made of the earth, so he can like kind of just look like a fucking rock, and kind of ambush people or hide that way. So that's really interesting.
Also, I think it's pretty much the same thing, but there's a thing called merge with stone, I think, that I kept seeing. But I think it's just basically a renaming of pass without a trace or whatever. But I was kind of imagining, he can like, kind of like disappear and hide.
Merge with stone is a separate. Yeah, it's a separate spell, but it's a very good spell.
Well, he's got that too, I think. Might have to double check.
You just like suck into the wall, and you just like become the wall.
Like a kind of like a Terminator goo type thing, but with stones and gemstones and whatnot. So I'm basically like imagining he could, he can just basically stomp straight in and come head on, or, like disappear, reappear behind somebody and still have like huge 2 double-handed weapons, which would be terrifying. And I also had the idea, not necessarily like a druid, but he's got like mold earth and some other things that he could potentially use aggressively in cool ways. Like make all of the terrain rough around everybody who's trying to run away from him, so they start to stumble and he's like walking over it with no problem, hacking at them.
That's cool.
Kind of look like Darth Vader, everybody's scattering but to no avail.
Yeah, that's like a really good use, like synergy of 2 skills. Because what was the Earth Walk? Was that the one that he can like walk on rough terrain? So if I make everybody else walk on rough terrain, but it's no big deal for me, that's like super tactically. That's a big tactical advantage.
Yeah, and it's not a huge area, but I think it would be enough to, like isolate enemies, catch people trying to run away, or if somebody's like rushing up and you have a chance to just like make rocks appear in front of them before they can get to you.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, these are a lot of things that I've never played like an earthy, like earthbender type character, to reference the Avatar series a second time.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's a combo with like 2 weapon fighting and his oversized weapon thing that comes from being a heavy gunner. I believe it lets you carry 2 dual-handed weapons.
That's crazy. I haven't seen that before, so I'm not sure if that's actually legit, but if so, that's insane.
There is
I wrote a note to have everyone check my reading on this, but if it's like versatile and two-handed, it's treated as light, and he can have 2-weapon fighting, which I think lets him have 2 light weapons. It seems very OP, but because you could have like 2, like I was imagining 2 great axes, which seems insane.
I mean, one of the prompts again that Billy said was like find cool features or things within the game and kind of build around those. So I think you've done that.
Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned it before, but also there's an action surge that he gets.
Yeah, as a fighter.
Yeah.
He's level 3 fighter, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so he should get action surge and what's it? Take a breath. Man, I'm rusty.
Second
Where he
wind.
can, second wind, yeah, where he can heal himself.
I mean, you were pretty close.
Take a breath.
Take a
basically
breath.
the same thing. Take a breather, bruh.
You've worked hard. Get that rep in. I like that all of our characters have a direct tie with like nature, or
Yeah, that worked out.
I think there will be good synergy there.
Yeah, it is interesting when because we almost always make our characters, even for ourselves, in secret, and they end up with a lot of similarities with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like fish out of water, all of us, and now we're all kind of like earthy characters.
Well, that's
and even like impulsive characters. Like I have rage problems. Both of your characters are impulsive. Like it's just that's kind of interesting.
Oh, it's going to be herding cats for Billy.
Yes. Sorry about that.
We have strong, willful, curious, impulsive characters. A party full of them.
Good. Every one of the characters sounds awesome. I'm very excited about it. What I think we could do right now is, I want to hear more about Sones. I want you and Eric and even Chris. It would be cool if you'd because it's a team effort. I want you to determine what is his personal goal and motivate. Like we know his background and all that stuff. Like what is he doing? Like why is he out in the world? Like is he just roaming because he doesn't know what to do? Does he have a goal? Because I think if we link them all the characters' goals together and how they can, even if they're not similar, that's how you make a really cool campaign. In that we kind of know what Alder Colt Leander is trying to do and what Stardew's trying to do. So I think it's you have a really cool character here, and I think just you and Eric and Chris as well just determine what is he out in the world doing, and where is he? What is he like? What is his overall motivation? What is he trying to do? And that can, it helps me tie the character into the campaign, and it helps you even figure out the getting the motivation for the character helps decision later on. So I think that'd be cool. So if you guys wanted to do that right now,
Yeah.
What
I think I like to have a similar like I did with Chris's character. I like to have like a long-term goal and a short-term goal. And from what Mark kind of laid out in the background, I would think that since he discovered this great atrocity that his people or that his war council is committing, he probably feels a responsibility to uncover that and show his actual country's leaders or people's leaders look at this injustice that the generals are committing. So kind of long-term goal I would assume would be bringing the honor back to his people and finishing this corruption or ending this corruption. And then kind of short-term is Mark said, he wants to kind of pay back this karmic debt, because he took part in this, even unknowingly, he took part in this unjust war. So kind of like a Ronin going around doing good deeds, trying to get his karma back, but it's like honor. I mean, we see honor points in like a lot of different manifestations in video games and stuff like that. So I would kind of see him like that. Like he's got a ledger.
Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So he's not necessarily like trying to make it right to like the people he has wronged specifically, but like
Yeah.
he can weigh probably at least the majority of like the actions he's done, so he kind of knows what he needs to get like his honor back. So he's got to go around and do like good deeds.
I
Yeah.
like the idea of like a scorekeeper like the Trandoshans have in their lore.
Yeah.
Of like the great scorekeeper keeps tally of your deeds, and he has to like something like that could drive.
Yeah, and again, man, third time on Avatar, but like the Fire Nation, like they are very honor bound, and like Zuko in the first season or two or whatever, like that's his entire goal is like I need to regain my honor, and the way he has to do it is to capture the Avatar. So it's kind of a mix. Yeah, there's like a scorekeeper ledger basically, and it's very like karma, but karma in like hard numbers. Like their culture basically expects you to keep track. Like it's not like it's not vague. Like it should be hard numbers,
Is that
but it's up to you.
Is that something
Yeah.
that could be like
That's cool.
carved into their stone skin, kind of like tribal markings or tattoos signify accomplishments?
That's interesting. That's an interesting because he would have these marks in his skin because he thought he was doing good deeds.
But now they're like a mark of shame.
Yeah, now so yeah, interesting. I like
Ooh.
that. So yes, now it's very easy for him to see because he's got the like tally marks or whatever type of tally that their culture uses.
They chip down to expose their gems underneath or something.
Yeah,
The substrate.
I've seen
Maybe that's why that would make it super more dishonorable to just kill people in order to take them if it was, like some kind of honor code on top of just straight up murder and like genetic experiments.
Yeah. I've seen there's this thing I've seen tally marks from around the world. So like here in America, we do like the 4 vertical lines and then the 1 diagonal to count to 5. Other cultures like make a box with a tally line or like a diagonal through it for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
And then like the Chinese one, China, Hong Kong, Japan, Korea have a different one too. So I'm not seeing it necessarily as like tally marks the way that we do it, but maybe some sort of like intricate design, but it, they equal up to 5 or 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
So it looks kind of like maybe even almost tribal tattoos, but maybe more like angular tribal tattoos. But yes, it's his deeds that now he has to overcome. So maybe like one arm is the deeds he thought were good but turn out to be bad, and now he has to like balance it on the other arm with good deeds.
That's awesome.
That's cool. I also imagined this all works. I was imagining part of like he's very honorable, they're honorable or whatever, but since his own people were shady, he's kind of done, I guess, like, I don't know, some self-reflection. And part of it is just like his connection to being so connected to the earth. So part of it is like, that's kind of where I was thinking of the almost druid slant coming in, because he's now more concerned about everything and in a way everyone because of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
he's like,
and that's
so like he'll defend somebody, like he'll be in a party or defend somebody else because they're weak and vulnerable because he kind of owes it to the earth and the ground that he came from, kind of deal.
Yeah. So I mean, I get what you're saying, and it is kind of like a karmic, like grander scale. Like he was very focused on like the tribe or the nation or whatever, and now that like his like eyes were open to see like a grander
Yeah.
picture, like a bigger picture.
Yeah, and I think with that scorekeeping thing, that like segues perfectly because that's kind of what I had in mind.
Nice. Billy, did we come to or did we resolve kind of what you were asking or what you were looking for?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for, and that brings the character, like, think about how much more real that, you know, the character is now, because you can see him kind of traveling around, you know, with these like marks of that used to be pride but now are, you know, penitence on his body, that like he sees now not as a, you know, a thing of pride to have all these marks on him of all these, you know, victories of against other Genesee that he had thought for, like, look at all the proud battles that I won, and then you realize that they weren't proud battles, like they were massacres, and now he's only sees them as marks of shame, um,
Yeah.
and
And
and it's nothing that he can erase. You know, it's permanently in his body, and so he can only um, re repair. And I see. So what I was thinking is, instead of so he has all these marks on his arm of these cuts, and because he is part of the earth, what I was thinking is, for the Genesee, the other elemental Genesee that he had committed these atrocities for, I was thinking that, like, for every, instead of doing another mark on his arm, he's filling the marks in his arm with gemstones of the color of the Genesee that he has done his penitence for. So if he heals a, you know, because he's got like fire red, but like if he heals an air Genesee, maybe he takes like an emerald or a green gemstone or something, and he puts that into his mark, or his cut or something like that, so that he's keeping track on his own, because you can't really erase those.
Mm-hmm.
But like for him, he's like he's refilling them with earth, because that's what he knows. Like gemstones is still earth, but you know, something to symbolic that he is, you know, we're like, all the Genesee are kind of interconnected. They're not, you know, like, even though he has this connection to the earth, like they're not arch enemies, and they're not people that to, you know, immediately kill when you see like
Yeah.
the, so that's what I was you can take it or leave it or something like that, but I was thinking
That's deep.
Yeah, the thing that so he would only then though have to work with other, like, healing other Genesee then, and not like every random, like if he heals a halfling, was he gonna take some halfling flesh and put it in there?
I'd like, but like the air Genesee wouldn't have the emerald. Like, he is, for each thing that he helps, he puts and it doesn't have to be just Genesee. Like, he has
Mhm.
a code of all these gemstones that he's adding to his body, and they reflect, like, he's filling
Oh.
these marks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
they
if
could be
It's
just
all
like
it
natural
could be, yeah, they
gemstones
could
or
be
whatever.
a tourmaline or whatever, something like that. Like, for him, he knows what this code means.
Mhm.
And like, but you see that, like, so you see him down, you see all these marks on his arm, and they could be, like, I would imagine, because their like their keeping, since they're stone, are all about like nicks and cuts and things like that, and whatever shape they are. But as he's refilling them with, you know, little gemstones of different colors, so that he has, like, his arm is like parts of it, and not very, you know, he just started maybe, but like you can see one of his arms is speckled with like different colored gemstones that nobody really knows what the, you know, it's kind of strange.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's interesting.
I don't know, or something like that.
The image of Drax Bautista as Drax the Destroyer just
Mhm.
popped into my head for this character.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. That's what I was seeing too. Like with the heavy weapon, like that's what he does. Like, he's a heavy weapons guy. But I think that because the Earth, like, that's everybody. There are no like light scouts in the Earth army.
Mhm.
You know, that is everything they do is heavy, and but it doesn't. You know, it's not a disadvantage to them, because they can just, like, movement and grounded to the earth, and it's
Mhm.
sneaking through them, like carrying all this weight. Like, they're already made of earth, so they're already so heavy themselves that carrying a big axe for them is
It's nothing.
not a big deal, because, you know, when you weigh 700 pounds or whatever, how much, like, almost, you know, rock would be like, or
Yeah.
I don't know how much they weigh, but it would be heavier than a person. So
Yeah, I was actually confused on that point because I looked around and saw that somebody said they go up to 225 pounds. I'm like, how are you going to be made out of stone and only weigh 225 pounds?
I know people that weigh that much.
I think that they
Yeah.
just
Are they
meant
solid stone?
Genesee in general, like maybe.
Oh, yeah, maybe that averages across the air Genesee,
Yeah,
so it comes way down.
They bring the average down.
Yeah, I mean,
So
he
what
doesn't
happens
have to
when you're
be
made of
super
air?
heavy, but
I
let's
should
just
have
say
looked for median, not average.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weight.
So maybe he weighs like 400 pounds, but he looks like he weighs around 200. He's still a stocky guy, but even though like he's not made of stone, but he has like stone characteristics that he's, you know, so he's just heavier. So that like a 20-pound, great axe is like a normal axe to a normal person. Like just relative based on their size. So I have no problem with them having giant weapons because of them. It's it's
They're
not
rock
like
people.
Yeah, they're rock people. That's what they do. They're big and heavy, but not slow. Like they use that to their advantage. But I think that's a cool idea. I mean, you can always, if you think of something cool later, or you want to change the story or add it, that is a malleable character development thing. I think that this leads some good, a good way to intro and introduce you guys to these stories. And I'm trying to link it that like even though we may not play these characters along and the story for us will end at the end of this adventure, I want it to be that this is just one part of their adventure and the story could go on and you could see where it's just a part of it. So that's why I'm trying to like see a not just a beginning, but how their stories could continue after the adventure path or this one is over, this campaign.
Totally.
So
you want to wait, and you don't want to talk about like how we might form up for the beginning of this new adventure. We'll leave that for next time.
I think that I have an idea, and
Cool.
we can say it over, and you can always change it afterwards. But so so right now. We will. You don't have to do your character voices, but I'll just do a little introduction of where every character is right now, and a little bit of back of what has happened. And that is, and we'll take it from there next week.
Cool.
Where we can go deeper into it, but you don't even have to do character voices. This is just like a preamble. So we'll start with Chris's character, the Leander. That's yours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I wrote down who made him, not who is playing him. That was a mistake.
Is it cool if I roll with the name Leander? Because that for some reason that just kind of sticks out to me and it just flows really nicely.
He could. Yeah, he definitely could. I mean, his name is that his? He goes by his last name.
Technically, his
last
name.
Fine.
But I also wanted to ask Eric. I don't want to kind of like.
No, go for it. All three names are up for grabs.
Cool. Yeah, Leander just sounds whimsical to me.
Yeah. So Alder called Leander in trying to research the source, the genetic source of this unknown, strange, and uncontrollable power to him, had gone through the satyr community that he grew up in, and in doing so, asking questions about his relatives and where this could have come from. There was this unspeakable secret that he noticed that whenever he talked to the elders, they would kind of steer the conversation away when it came to his great-grandfather. And after researching a little further, he discovered that his great-grandfather, Harriman Leander, left the satyr community and traveled with a group of nomads called the Vistani. And this was some not shameful act, but they don't really talk about it because the satyr community is so close, so together, so they coexist with other fae, but not really interact with the non-fae creatures. So having him leave the community to go and just explore on his own was uncommon enough to not really be mentioned.
He got Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah, somewhat, yes. And he just came to a brick wall in the Satyr community where he couldn't really find out any more information. They didn't know anything about this Vistani people or about the things that Perriman Leander could have done on his adventures, but based off what he was known, what he's been told, there's really that's the only option that he could have gotten this magical blood somehow, or something could have happened. So, in his effort to determine where this magic came from and find out more about his relatives and his history and the history of this magical affliction in his family, he has traveled to the realm of the humans, to a great library of knowledge known as Candlekeep. And Candlekeep has a specific smaller room that's dedicated to the Fae and Fae research, because not only do they have a lot of Fae visitors, but there are a lot of non-Fae visitors that are very much interested in Fae history and cultures and traditions. So this Fae Archives is a smaller subset building in the Candlekeep, and that is where Leander finds himself. While there, he sees Stardew. Stardew Raindrop has come to that Fae Archives to try to determine more about how to recharge this Moonfire staff that she has. This staff that has great power, but is somewhat of a is it like a rite of passage that to recharge this, or is this something that happens somewhat often, or is it something that she has to take on her own? What were you thinking with this? Either Mark or Chris, what were you thinking on this?
I left it pretty open-ended. The initial inspiration was just, she needs a reason to take this and go on an adventure, but it gives her something cool to use. The thing was, anytime a new head of the Enclave, I'm not sure, head shaman or whatever, anytime that transition happens, it's like a magical attunement. So the staff is passed on to the new, head of the Enclave. That person will need to take it. And I think it's unique to the person. So whatever that quest is to kind of recharge it or to attune to it, might maybe a better word, is going to be a unique spiritual vision quest that person kind of has to figure out.
Yeah, I was imagining something along those lines too. Maybe it's you have to kind of, in a way, gain the trust of it. You know what I mean? Get used to using it, but also it has to feed back to you.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, that most of what I just said was kind of the most of what I thought of, because I wanted to also be able to hand off the rest of the creative, storytelling to you. I think it's fun to here's just a little foundation. You take it the rest of the way.
Yeah, and if it's like a spirit quest, so she's got to read the old tomes and stories of how other people have done it, and kind of figure the details out on her own. So that's why she needs to go to the library.
Yeah, any clues or whatever. So that's totally open ended, and I leave that to you and maybe Billy to figure out. But I rinse my hands of it.
All right. Well, here is where I'm going to take that yes and it and continue on. So, in this Fae archive of Candlekeep, Stardew has done some preliminary research about the Moonfire staff, and it's only mentioned a few times in passing in other stories. They don't really tell much about it in these written tomes, but through that research, they describe the Moonfire Staff as similar to moonlight in that the moonlight is truly just a reflection of the sun. And the energies of the Moonfire Staff, in turn, it's a reflection of the elven magic found in the Feywild. And the strongest source of this reflective magic of the Feywild is actually in the Shadowfell.
Oh.
You don't know much more than that, but you know that the source of the magic of this staff, it actually does come from the Feywild, but it goes through the Shadowfell. And so in researching that, you have to figure out how to get to the Shadowfell. This is not something that the Fey creatures can do intuitively, unlike going to the Feywild. So, in this archive, you learn of a book called The Book of the Raven that may hold some clues to possible routes in and out of the Shadowfell.
That's
And
super cool.
As you are in at the librarian and you are requesting this book, you requesting this out loud, Leander, who's somewhat near, overhears you and realizes this Book of the Raven is also the book that he was looking for, because it is a story that involves the Vistani. There's not any information on the Vistani, but there are first-hand accounts of people that have traveled with the Vistani. And one of these first-hand accounts is the Book of the Raven. And that's where we will leave.
Nice. I gotta say, for pulling that up like on the spot from just the characters that we introduced, well played.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Grade A improv.
Smooth operator.
I appreciate it. I will introduce Eric's character later, but it's in a different way, and I think that that's going to be fun.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was going to just kind of like we had talked about some of those ways in the last episode, and it sounds like you're kind of setting up to maybe use something like that, which is awesome. Like, I appreciate that. They
don't all have to just meet together at the same time. You can have a party that forms naturally, but yeah, he'll join in here, so you're not going to be sitting around doing nothing, Eric. But yeah, we will take it off what is in the Book of the Raven next week.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So everyone work on your character voices. Also, like before we wrap up, I just want to say like bring attention to, or just like say how much I enjoyed being able to share all these characters. But then like for me, the real magic happened, and we've talked about this in different episodes of like helping each other in these zero sessions, like in character creation. This is the first time that I think we've been able to like spend a lot of time on that help and on those conversations of like building on and yes-anding with these characters using this method. And I think for, every instance of these characters, that process has made them just a more well-rounded character. So I'm just so happy and so pleased how that occurred, and that we were able to, record that and be able to share that so other people can kind of understand what that actually looks like and what the result of that can be. Because like these characters to me are just, I can't wait to throw them together now.
Yeah, it really did. At the end of this, every character came out is better than they were when we went in. So yeah, it is really interesting.
Yeah, so with this, I think we can probably wrap up. We've got 3 awesome characters. We've got a new campaign set up from Candlekeep Mysteries, and we'll see what awaits us potentially in the Shadowfell based on that preamble. So thanks so much, guys, for all the interesting characters. Billy, thanks for setting up the game. Can't wait until the next episode, and we'll catch you next time.